Yo, thank you for tuning in to our first episode. I am Don, and that is Don right there. We're back again, and we have a few things to come out here and talk to you guys about. A couple of these things will be involved. hey, hello. Let's do it again. Yo, right, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the first episode from Don and Don. We have a few things to talk about today. Some of those will just be involving the EU government, DRM, Denuvo, hypervisor, Microsoft, and that's just to mention a few. So as I was saying, we'll be going in. We won't go into any technical depth with any of these topics. We get that you guys don't want to hear all of the technical jargon. We're just going to let you guys know what's the news, what's our opinions on it, and how this might impact you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, hi. I'm Donovan. Don. This is Don DL. Don. And we're going to talk to you guys about some news that's going on in tech and cybersecurity. And that's what the show is going to be about. And we're going to try to keep it light, try to keep it interesting, and try to take as many suggestions from the comments as possible so that this stays as interactive as possible and turns into possibly a community. So, yeah, let's get started.
Okay, so on our first one up here, guys, we're just going to be talking about partly with Denuvo and hypervisor. There is a brand new method to bypass Denuvo, and if you don't know what Denuvo is a form of DRM. DRM is digital rights management.
I hate to cut you off, but let's keep it structured with the hick. Like start with a hook that's going to catch people's attention, even if they have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, and then tell them why they should be interested in the content, and then give them the content, and then you can kind of explain it during the content, and then at the end of it, you kind of wrap it up into a call to action, like this is what's going on next, this is what you need to look out for, like what are your thoughts and comments and stuff. So, but definitely let's pretend that you're a viewer clicking on this as a YouTube video and you've never heard of anything, and you just hear a sentence that makes you want to watch the whole thing, even if you've never heard of it. All right.
So anyway, guys, pretty much what's going on is that we have pirates and gamers risking their PCs, turning their PCs into a security hellscape, just to give this company, Denuvo, practically the middle finger. There's just been an ongoing war between players and publishers of these games, just as much as a war between players and Denuvo. It's practically players versus the entire ecosystem, and Denuvo is just the battlefield of which is happening on.
So what is Denuvo, and what game specifically are you talking about?
Okay, so I'm actually very glad that you asked that. Denuvo is a digital rights management company. They're probably a cybersecurity company. That what they do is that they operate at ring zero. All it is just your kernel. It's going to have the most access to your computer. And all it does is this. It does security checks to verify that you actually own the license and are authorized to play these games. Pretty much, if you don't, it kicks you off. It boots you off. It closes the application.
So it's like anti-pirating software.
Exactly. It's pretty much like anti-tamper, essentially.
Okay, gotcha.
So pretty much what happens, guys, is that these things, they can do 14 or 30-day checks to make sure that you're online all the time. And my problem with this is that, what if my internet goes out? What if the local area goes out? What if I'm just low on money? I can't pay my internet bill. It might be out for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, man. Some of these people are just not fortunate. And that's the issue that I really have with this right here as far as that. And I mean, if I recall correctly, the first time DRM was being heavily implemented was around 2015 when it first came into 2K. Imagine that. The one game that everybody plays, 2K, it's going to be one of the first ones. Also led by a company that's just as greedy. Now, there have been a lot more recent titles. There was a title that literally got cracked 3 days before release. 3 full days before the entire game release. People could get it for free, access for free, play it for free. And that is essentially why these companies, they want DRM so people can't crack these games and play them for free. But now people are getting to a point to where they can bypass Denuvo's method, which, by the way, if nobody was aware before, Denuvo is pretty much the premier company when it comes down to digital rights management. It went from being months, man, years for some of these games to be cracked with Denuvo protecting them. Now we're getting cracks within, 3 days before, all the way up to about a week after. And it's getting to a point to where these video game companies, they are not going to want to do anything. They're trying to protect their sales window. But it's getting to a point to where they're cracking the games. People are having access to the game before the sales window is completely cracking opening and the game gets fully released to the public to even, play.
Wait, so let me make sure I understand the dynamic that's going on, right? So what I'm hearing is that these game companies want to make sure that you're not pirating. So they implement something called digital rights management.
Yes.
And that just checks to make sure that you're legitimate, right? But the downside to that is people who paid for the game, they may no longer have access to the game if they're not currently connected to internet every 15, 30 days, or maybe paying for a subscription. They don't really own what they bought. And then is that causing a spike in piracy out of spite for these new regulations?
Piracy has always been a thing. If you think about it, since the age of the internet, piracy has always been a thing in every single industry that's been major. The movie industry, the music industry, the video game industry, any industry to where these items can be accessed digitally, piracy will always be a thing. However, the step up in piracy recently, because there's been roughly about over 150 games that ended up being cracked all within a 3-day period. And I mean,
some of those games.
Oh yeah, of course, man. Some of them, for example, Pragmata. There was a new Lego Batman game that was super hyped. It literally got cracked 3 days after release. I mean, this was just released last month, Don, and it got cracked. So I can definitely see where the shift is going to, where these companies are gonna possibly stop trusting Denuvo to protect their games, because they need these sales windows. This is just their biggest opportunity to make money, is before a game releases and immediately after a game releases. That is your time. Yeah.
Why is Denuvo getting cracked so heavily now? Is it a weakness in Denuvo's systems, or why now is there this spike going on?
Well, the thing here is that Denuvo's not actually getting cracked. Denuvo's getting bypassed. So, for a couple of our people out there, I'm going to try to put it a little bit of layman's terms. Pretty much, imagine that you own a security club, yes? And every single time you try to go back inside of your home, my bad, not home, but your own security club, your own security guards insist on frisking you every single time, right? So this is essentially one of the issues that players have with Denuvo, is that it's unnecessary. And this also ties into my next topic that I'll be going into here shortly, is that once it's done, because these checks and having to be online all the time, once their authentication servers go down, there's nothing that can keep that process of keeping the game and verifying that you own that game up. So it's essentially killing the game completely. So imagine that you buy your iPhone, correct? And you don't want to buy iPhone year to year to year to year. So you hold on to it for 3 or 4 years. Then let's just say on that 3rd year where you were planning, okay, I'll replace it on my 4th year or maybe my 5th year. They all of a sudden just say, well, hey, we're going to go ahead and shut down your network capabilities to anything, the satellites, to be able to connect to 5G towers. It's essentially the same process, except for they're not telling the consumer that, hey, this is going to get shut down, or hey, this is going to have a window to where you'll only be able to access and play it for this point, and then we're going to kill the servers for it. It's probably a consumer trust issue. And this is where the piracy has been going up higher and higher. I mean, from time, like I said before, piracy has always been a thing. They call it an issue. Some gamers say that's necessary. But if you really look at the metrics here, Don, there's really no comparison. I mean, they're just legitimate consumers getting fucked out of their own hard-earned money and their own product that they own. This is an ownership issue. And that is what the consumers are having a problem with, is if we purchase this, we should be able to own it and play it because we still own it. But when you make a game that should be a single player game at that, correct? And then you say, hey, you have to be online to authenticate it. One, it's a single player game, shouldn't have to require online access or internet connectivity of any sort in order to play. That is another main issue that these players are starting to have, who are going into piracy and becoming pirates themselves, is that there's a large shift between the companies getting too greedy and the players wanting to fight back.
Okay, and you mentioned availability of these verification servers. Is that actually a legitimate issue, or is it just a concern for the future right now?
The way I see it, it is a budget issue. To keep servers up costs money, costs maintenance, resources, really. And once a game gets too old, they may see the player base that's still playing it as too small to justify keeping those servers up. But there are...
Like when you buy a book on Audible, which is why I canceled my Audible subscription, and then they remove the book from Audible. It's like, I paid for that book. Why do you have the right to take it from me just because you decide that it's not going to be on your platform anymore?
And you see, it's just like with more going into terms of I'm very glad that you brought up Audible and the subscription platform, because that also kind of segues me a little bit into cloud. This is kind of stretching it out.
Let's move forward with your topics.
Yeah, and so, you know, the hugest problem with this right now is that we have sort of Microsoft, because this is working at ring 0, that's your kernel level, and then the bypass is working at the level beneath it, ring -1, right? So that's where your virtual machines and everything that can control that essentially. So pretty much the bypass is working as a bubble around Denuvo, since it's working at the kernel level. And what happens is that hypervisor, every time Denuvo sends out a check to authenticate whether this is a true license, you actually own this, it intercepts it at the edge of the bubble, and it brings it back and gives it a fake approved check, and it practically just does a fake hand check with Denuvo that way. That's the way that it's been practically working. But one of the interesting things that I have here, I thought Microsoft could be sitting on a gold mine, because Microsoft owns Xbox, and we all know that PlayStation has pretty much been the premier, I guess, gaming console to play on. You hear about it all the time. If somebody's going to play on something, they're going to choose a PlayStation. However, Microsoft recently pivoted away from hardware to focus on all software, which they had their Xbox Game Pass, which is a subscription service much like Netflix that also includes cloud gaming. So you can play from anywhere on any device, your phone, your Android, your iPad, your tablet. And that's the interesting part now, is I notice if they're pivoting this to cloud, if they keep this DRM and say, hey, you guys are having so much trouble protecting your own assets and getting the premier third party company to protect your assets, Why not just put everything in the cloud where nobody can touch it? They won't have access to any of the files. And that is where I truly see the shift coming to, people. If this continues, and I'm not saying that pirates are wrong, you guys keep pirating because obviously these companies are greedy. Billion-dollar companies are literally looking for the smallest of margins ever to make profit. So it truly is a fuck them. Like, we don't give a shit.
I don't think we could legally tell people to keep pirating. I think we could say, like, if you're gonna pirate, what I think legally, if you tell people to pirate, we could.
Okay, guys. If you're back there, we're gonna put a disclaimer right when I said that. Don't pirate. But pretty much,
we don't have to tell them not to pirate. We just can't tell them to pirate. You know?
Yeah. Look, pretty much, we don't encourage pirating. But if you're doing it, do you? You know what I mean? If you're doing it, do you? That's all we can say. That's as far as we're going to take it. Now, guys, I want to remind you, if you're also thinking about going out and saying, oh my God, I've really been thinking about playing this game, I just can't afford it recently, there do come risks. There is actually a fuck ton of risk that comes with doing this hypervisor bypass, because you have to disable secure boot, memory integrity, and just a bunch of more security features. One is even it's man, you know, I forget about it. It's your VM setting pretty much also there. Guys, you're pretty much just conditioning yourself to trust unknown actors.
From my understanding, secure boot is the root of trust of an entire operating system. To disable secure boot means that this crack that you're downloading
is loading up before the operating system loads up. Yes.
So it could literally do anything and hide anything, and you would never be able to tell what it's doing.
Yep.
It could shut down your machine. It could take control of it as a botnet. It could steal everything that's on your computer, all your bank information, all your personal data to sell it, and you wouldn't even know, because it could hide itself, because we're not even in secure boot. It could do crazy things.
I mean, these people could be using people's computers for all we know to crypto mine, you know? Because if you think about it, the majority of these people's computers are probably capable of doing that, considering that they're pirating brand new games that are AAA titles, and those are generally pretty harsh on systems, especially older systems. So people would have the capable hardware to crypto mine, and at the mass that people are trusting these methods, it's pretty hard to say. Luckily enough, the pirating community seems to have trusted good actors who are the ones leading this wave of these bypasses. Some of them is
even with these trusted good actors in the piracy community, there's always a chance of a supply chain attack. Like, say one person sneaks his way into the community as a trusted agent, and then, you know, people stay as good actors for years before they try to sneak something into code that is a backdoor. And it's happened with the Linux kernel. The Linux kernel was almost busted that way. This guy was working on a dependency for the Linux kernel for like 3 to 4 years before they finally tried to slide something in there.
I'm still here. I'm just getting some motion.
It's just very dangerous, you know, to be trusting. It's very dangerous to be trusting anything open source full-heartedly at a kernel level if it's not completely peer reviewed constantly. And even then, if it's not production development, like if it's not a production model of that software, it's very hard to trust anything that's community driven 100%.
And so, all my people, this actually leads me into the point of, what will Microsoft do? Are you going to choose platform dominance and profit? Because right now it seems like if they allow this DRM to keep going, these bypasses, and not try to have some sort of patch put out, I mean, this could honestly take a while. This should really be a Denuvo issue, but considering how far people are willing to go to just bypass it and give these random people such broad access to their computers, then I would say that they have to choose right now. Are you choosing platform dominance and profit, or overall security and consumer trust? Which side are you going to pick? Because, I mean, obviously, if they allowed us to continue, the shift goes to cloud. And then what happens at that point will essentially trickle down to all of the other games essentially being like, hey, we don't want to be the only ones left out. We're going to have to put our games up here. This protects our sales window. And it creates a very different future for owning games, especially hobbyists, people who like to collect physical copies of items. So, pretty much by that, guys, I mean, we're just stripping away layers of Windows security just in order to play Denuvo Protect the games. So are we really willing to shape a future in which true ownership may not be possible, and we're just gonna eventually shift it to a cloud-only future? I've already told you guys my opinions. That's up for you guys. Let me know some of that down below in the comments.
Yeah, and I'd like to touch on that too, because this is so huge. But definitely let us know in the comments what your guys' opinions are on where the future is headed with this topic. But I think, in my opinion, it boils down to whatever's easiest for the consumer is what they will always do. Like, if it's easier for the consumer to go to Blockbuster and rent a VHS than it is for that consumer to go down to a shady street and buy a bootleg VHS, you know, if it's easier for that person to just go to Blockbuster, they're going to do the legal thing. However, when you get companies like Netflix who take titles offline that you've already paid for, and it's easier to go on a website and you assume the risk of the viruses that may be associated with that website, you use ad blockers and do what you can, antivirus, to try to, you know, mitigate those risks. If it's easier for the customer to do that, to get the shows that they want, and now, like, you're paying for subscription models and still getting ads, like, you see a huge influx of people who never would have been pirates pirating things and driving that community up. And I think the same thing is going to happen to games. If it's going to be easier in the future to go down a couple websites on a thread of some forum and download copies of the game and save it to a physical hard drive and self-host on your own server maybe and share it with your friends, I think that's the culture that we're propagating here. If Microsoft continues to try to go down this sloppy, easy cloud AI bullshit route that just completely takes away ownership from consumers.
You know, the thing is that I feel every company wants to monopolize. Every company wants to increase their profit margins. So, with one step at a time, we all know one company that is so great, guys, at just being able to. Hold on, seems like we got some feedback going on.
Cool, spacebar, that works. You still hear me?
Yeah.
All right, this is a supply chain takeover that will affect everything from the bare metal chip manufacturing to admins, engineering, cloud services, to the privacy of your data being used on AI platforms. Oh my God, I fucking did it again.
Hey,
okay, let me start over.
Hey, stop talking like that. No, my bad. That's not descriptive enough. You're using a very monotonous tone, like as if you're in a classroom.
Okay.
Like, you're talking to me, you know what I'm saying? You're talking to me.
Yeah, this is just a conversation.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So today we're going to be talking about AI and cloud in regards to the EU. Now, the EU, European Union, that's what that stands for. AI, artificial intelligence.
A lot of people don't know that.
You know, I mean, just in case, man, you know, got to cover our bases. So AI and cloud are pretty related, right? Because AI is hosted in the cloud. And the data that's being used for AI is going to be data that is governed by cloud, right? So if you have laws that deal with cloud and you have laws that deal with AI, they're all going to be kind of intertwined and related. So this is all about the AI and Cloud Act, or the Cloud and AI Act, Data Act. So CADA, the European Union Cloud and AI Data Act. So the European Union is freeing themselves from American tech companies, and it's more than just AI. This is a supply chain takeover that will affect everything from the bare metal chip manufacturing to admins, engineering, cloud services, to the privacy of your data being used on European AI platforms. I don't know if I like that. I think I'm like.
Now, why is it that they see it as themselves freeing themselves from American tech companies?
Glad you asked. So the problem here, Don, is that the European Union, Europe in general, is falling very far behind America and China, but mostly America, in terms of the market share that they own in their own continent when it comes to cloud computing. And that gap is just getting bigger and bigger every single day, with tech companies like Amazon taking over so much of the market share, and it just keeps growing. So the main fear is that Europe will just be out of the money pool completely, and they will not be able to compete when it comes to cloud computing or AI or supercomputers or quantum or any of that. They're just lagging behind, and they need to hurry up and catch up. Now, the second part about this is the European Union is worried about something called data sovereignty, right? Like, so that the data that they host in the cloud is Europe's data specifically, and that no other entity is going to be able to legally have access to that, right? So Europe follows laws like GDPR, which governs the rights of the people in Europe and how their data can be used and accessed by other companies. Meanwhile, America just kind of takes that and sells it to whomever, right? And so Europe is worried that if all the critical infrastructure in their defense is being hosted on American companies, that America gets to dictate the laws, and they may eventually have increasing control over not just European money when it comes to AI and cloud, but actual European government policies and decisions.
Now, as far as I'm aware, the EU is one of the strongest government councils out there, or governing bodies out there. I'm very surprised that they would, because they've always been tough on tech companies as far as any other government I've known to be. So it's very, very interesting that they're looking to pretty much say fuck them. Anything outside of our borders will be for us.
Yeah, right. And it's not necessarily like a fuck you, anything inside of our borders is for us. But right now, as it stands, they don't have a substantial way to keep up that is just theirs. Anything they could possibly want, they have to go with American companies. And that's the problem, right? Like, if it wasn't critical infrastructure, like power plants or water treatment facilities, things that people need to live, right? It would be okay to use an American company, sure. But as it stands right now, there aren't really many options, and they're more expensive for European companies to choose a cloud provider that is based in Europe. All right, so key player, we need to know what the European Central Bank is. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It makes monetary policy for the European Union. And we need to know this guy, Mario Draghi, the president of the European Central Bank between 2011 and 2019. That's a long fucking time to be president of the largest central bank pretty much in the world. I don't know of a larger one. And he was the prime minister of Italy after that for a while, as you can see.
How?
And what this guy, Mario, says. Go ahead.
This one went from is being the president of the European Central Bank, is that essentially like a government position, Or like, what are we talking
Yeah,
about? Okay.
I'm glad you asked that, right? So the way that the European Union establishes its government, so to speak, is it basically has three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. Your executive branch is split up into the council and the commission, and they propose policy. And within the realm of those three branches of government, you know, they all have to work with each other to make the European Union run. Anything that has to do with money gets advised by the central bank, and the central bank is like it says, a bank, and they're in charge of keeping up with all the money. So basically, anything that has to do with money, which is everything, um, is influenced by the European Central Bank before the policies go into place.
Wow.
So a pretty important position, definitely. Out of the three main branches of the European Union government, there are some branches that don't fit within those three, and the largest fourth branch that doesn't fit within the main three branches is the European Central Bank.
That's insane.
Yeah, so this guy's pretty fucking important, right? And what he said in 2024, basically he presented this report on European competitiveness in 2024, September 17th. And he's basically like, we're falling behind. We need to establish a Cloud and AI Development Act. And you'll hear me talk about this a lot. Cloud and AI Development Act, or CADA. So this guy came up with the idea and presented it. Now, here we get to what we're talking about. You see my mouse?
Yeah.
I should probably make it bigger. But the European Commission, right, is one of the three main branches. And it's half of the executive branch, which is one of the three main branches. And it submits the proposals to Parliament and the Council. And then these guys talk to each other before it becomes a law. And that's pretty much what the European Commission is in charge of. So, like, if anything wants to become a law, the European Commission is the only way for it to become a law. They have to create the proposal, right? And so these proposals are a big deal. So now we get to Henna Virkkunen,
Okay.
Executive Vice President of the European Commission for Technological Sovereignty, Security, and Democracy. Right, so it's a little confusing, so I brought this picture. So Ursula here is the head of the European Commission. And if we look, the European Commission is half of the executive branch. The European Commission is, like I said, the thing that submits proposals. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main branches of the European Commission. And Henna Virkkunen right here is in charge of one of those 6, which is anything to do with a new technology, whether it be tech, quantum computing, or some sort of engineering feat that doesn't even necessarily have to do with computing. Anything brand new, technology, she's in charge of the future.
Wow.
And what she has to say, when she took office in December 11th, 2024, not too far after the Cloud and AI Development Act was kind of talked about for the first time, she said she's going to do it. She said the smallest businesses are going to have access to the most advanced AI services, and we're gonna ramp up, and we're not going to be so far behind everybody else.
Right.
All right. Another big day, September 12th, 2025. There was a briefing, an AI and Cloud Development Act briefing. And this is probably the largest briefing to have gone down so far, except for one thing that I'll talk about later. And basically, here's some stats for you. 3 U.S. companies account for 65% of EU cloud services. The United States has twice Europe's share of global data center capability. Even though the U.S. and the EU have a comparable GDP. Right?
You know, it's crazy. I already know which 3 companies it is.
Yeah, of course, it's the big 3. But You'd be surprised how much of it is just the big one. I mean, I think like Kendrick said, it's like,
Well,
fuck the big three.
it's
It's big me. It's AWS is taking control of maybe like half of that.
where. Do we know where Azure's market share is at?
I don't have those numbers. No, I just have the number for all three of them combined. That's the number that kept popping up.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good to know.
It's 21%, right behind Amazon at 28%.
And is that in Europe?
This is global.
No, we need Europe.
Azure holds 23 to 25% in Europe. AWS holds 31 and 32%.
Okay, so it's not a crazy difference. So basically, they're saying we need data centers. Mm-hmm. We don't just need cloud. We need data centers. We need physical infrastructure. And also they talk about here a need for sovereign digital transition, which is basically data ownership, global competition. But one thing here, the member states did not manage to reach an agreement, right? Mm-hmm. So these member states, all these countries that make up the European Union, they couldn't quite agree on what it means for a cloud company to be European Union data sovereign compliant. So they are slowly making progress, but they can't really seem to come up with it. Now here's another key player is the European Digital SME Alliance.
Okay.
So small and medium enterprises, that's what SME stands for. It's basically just this association, like it says, 30 countries, 45,000 enterprises. These aren't 45,000 people, 45,000 small and medium-sized businesses, right, make up this alliance. And they've had a lot of input into laws that have been passed in the European Union in the past. So not something to take lightly just because they're an alliance and not an official government. Right? And here we get to this paper they released in May of this year. So now we're getting recent and why this is blowing up on the news again. Yet the European cloud market remains structurally imbalanced. EU providers hold less than 13% of the market, while 3 US hyperscalers control about 70%. This dependency generates an estimated annual outflow of over 260 billion euros and creates security and resilience risk, notably through the legal exposure of non-EU providers to third country jurisdictions such as the US Cloud Act.
Now, this actually brings this doesn't make sense to me. Why would a company operating on a different country's soil, why would they not fall more subject to the country that they're operating in versus the country that they're based out of?
Are you talking about companies like Amazon operating within the European Union? Why are they following American laws and not European laws?
Yes. Like, why would they not be subject to European laws just as much, if that makes sense?
So technically they are subject to European laws. The only difference is it's kind of hard to separate the two. And, let's say the UK has a law that says we require this data, and the European Union, for those of you who don't know, the UK left the European Union in like 2013 or 2019?
2019, like I believe. So definitely not 2013. It's like way too early, I believe.
Okay, so they're the only country to have ever left the European Union. Greece was considering it at one point, but so if the UK wants data and it has a law that says it can grab it, and America has a law such as the US Cloud Act that says, okay, UK, you're allowed to have it, how do we determine that those two laws are not as important as like GDPR in Europe? It gets really messy when you try to clash international law with international law. It all goes down to what physical soil holds these data centers, that holds this data. At the end of the day, it's the physical location that's going to really draw the line. Unfortunately, even if that data is virtually held in a region that's in Europe, if they've got backups of it on American soil, or an American company owns it, and that's treated as an American citizen, there's nothing really stopping America from sharing that data with these third-party countries, or third countries. So we get into the U.S. Cloud Act, which stands for Clarifying Lawful Overseas Use of Data, right? And I was surprised by that. I thought the Cloud Act had to do with cloud. Nothing to do with cloud. It just happens to, So basically, if a country that has an agreement with the U.S. wants data, and it has to do with criminal case, it can get it 100% of the time, as fast as it needs it. No questions asked. And right now, the only countries that have an agreement with the U.S. like that are the UK and Australia. So, hypothetically speaking, if a European power plant company was hosting services on AWS and some sort of criminal case went down that involved that data, allegedly, the UK or Australia could have access to that European country's data legally. And that's a big concern for Europe, especially when it comes to defense systems as well. So, national defense, not just critical infrastructure. And France and Germany, since 2019, have been trying to partner together. The Minister of Economic Affairs for France and the Minister of Economic Affairs in Germany kind of got together and made this project called Gaia-X, G-A-I-A-X, which is named after a Greek goddess that means earth. No idea why the hell they chose that, but basically France and Germany are key players and pushers for this type of data sovereignty, and they have been for a long time. And then we're also talking about infrastructure. This doesn't just have to do with cloud. This has to do with a lot of things that intertwine. AI, Europe's really trying to just be capable of doing all this themselves. Now that leads us to the most recent headline, and why we're talking about this is because on June 3rd, the European Union finally published the proposal for the Cloud and AI Development Act. No more talking, no more meetings. There's a proposal out there. You can go online, you can download it, you can read it. I have the links in my sources. Kind of lengthy, but really interesting. It focuses on 4 main concepts. You can read them here. Increased computing capacity, sustainable technologies, deployment of these technologies across the Union. So making sure that companies are incentivized to come to Europe, making sure that European companies are incentivized financially to choose European cloud providers. So probably tax breaks, maybe tariffs if you choose to go outside of the European Union for these things. And then also data sovereignty. So they're going to be talking about cybersecurity risks and, laws and regulations that involve the sharing of data, especially related to the U.S. Cloud Act. And also protect public order by making the supply of cloud computing service. I don't really understand that one, but maybe someone can tell me. And these are from reading over the document.
Jeez,
you okay?
What the fuck does that mean? Go back one. Help protect public. Check this out, y'all. This is what Don just read. Help protect public order by making the supply of cloud computing services more resilient, and particular in the public. Oh my God! Actually, reading it out loud, it seems to break down to I feel like this is literally just saying, hey, we're gonna use any information from AI to pretty much catch criminals. That's what I'm reading, especially when it says of cloud computing services more resilient, and then in particular in the public sector, and then when you say protect public order, are you trying to prevent discourse? You know, like so
Get that
so.
at all from this, but maybe.
What were you getting? What were you getting from it?
Well, it does say help protect public order, right?
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more so like, are these cloud computing technologies going to be more stable? You know, like, is your traffic light going to work when you pull up to the traffic light? Is your water going to turn hot when you turn on the hot water? Like, is your water meter going to read accurately? Like, are things going to affect your daily life, the public, because of non-availability when it comes to cloud services?
But it says more resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like, what are we talking about here? We're talking about like when it goes down, when it's not working properly, like
That's
can
what
it
I'm
bounce
getting.
back?
Just like more availability. That's what I'm getting. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you guys could tell us what you think in the comments. Maybe some experts out there.
Yeah.
So I skimmed through a little bit of the document.
Mm-hmm.
These are the notes that really stood out to me in this proposal they published on June 3rd. They say that in 2017, Europe had 29% of a market share in cloud computing. And in 2022, it was 15%. That's damn near half.
We can practically say half because it's less than half of 1%.
Well, it's exactly half of 1%.
Yeah, so I said.
Okay.
That's crazy. No, I wonder what it's actually at in 2026.
Right
yeah,
right. Because that's another 4 years.
Like going on a
trend,
almost a
like
decade, though. You know.
9%. Yeah. If the half-life stays the same, it would be about like what, 8 or 9% right now.
Yeah.
But also, we're gonna tie this Cloud and AI Development Act into other initiatives like the CHIPS Act 2.0, which is basically just we're gonna start making microchips in Europe.
Now, what were the revisions to the Cybersecurity Act? We don't need to know what the act is, but what were like the revision?
So I don't know what the revisions are, but a supply chain risk basically is saying, okay, even if we own our data, if we're buying server racks from Taiwan and China decides to like sneak some funky software, or US decides to sneak some funky software into those server racks before they sell it to us, we're still at risk here. So that's what a supply chain attack is someone getting a hold of infrastructure before it even gets to you. So the Cybersecurity Act revision addressing supply chain risk probably has a lot to do with the CHIPS Act. So it's saying like, we can't buy chips from another country because we don't know for sure if it's safe. So we need to own everything from the ground up, from the bare metal manufacturing of chips and storage devices, data centers, super data centers, gigafactories, and then provisioning that for cloud. So that's what I would assume, but someone can correct me on that. And then also they're working on trying to clarify what it means to be a European cloud service provider that is certified to be European standards of cybersecurity. So they're working on getting that clarification like we talked about. And then another one, removing key sources of vendor lock-in, right?
You know,
vendor lock-in is basically, go ahead.
one of the questions I actually have about this is, as far as the supply chain risk, wouldn't there be no real risk as long as it's not open source? No.
Explain.
So as long as no, okay, so like let's say like the servers are in Taiwan, like you were saying, right? Um, as long as everything is like closed loop, right? Not open source. Like, is there still really a risk there because you would have to have
I don't understand what you mean by not open source.
are these are the servers open source?
I don't know what you mean by a server being open source.
Any like anybody can access or alter the code open source.
No, so basically, it would be something that they were unaware of. See, I get your point. Like, if you trust a country and you buy something from that country, so this could also be a problem with the government. So say you're buying a chip from China, and this happens in the U.S. all the time. You buy stuff off of Temu, right?
Yeah.
The factory that makes that might not even know, but some Chinese government who's in charge of inspecting your IoT devices, like maybe you buy a smart light bulb that connects to Bluetooth from China, the company that the government mandates that is in charge of inspecting it before it gets shipped to America just puts a little chip in there that watches what you do. You know, like the company selling that to you may have no idea that they're selling it to you with an infected chip. But the Chinese government surely does. And we certainly do that to other countries. So that's the supply chain risk, is that if it's not coming from Europe, you can't verify the intentions of that product 100%. You can never trust. And even if it's in Europe, you can never trust it 100%. But that's basically what a supply chain risk is.
Okay.
And as for vendor lock-in, it's exactly what it sounds like. Say you have these services running. It's actually funny that the U.S. Navy is actually vendor locked into Azure. Like, Azure tried to jack the prices up, and the U.S. Navy was like, screw that. We're moving everything out of Azure, and we're going to move it to another company. And then Azure's like, okay, this is how much it's going to cost for you to move everything. And it was like an egregious amount of money that it would cost to transport everything and transition it to another cloud provider. So we're kind of stuck using Azure. And then therefore they can monopolize and control the prices and kind of jack the prices up whenever they feel like it. So the European Union wants to avoid that. So they want to use more companies and smaller companies and avoid monopolization.
You know, it's very funny. The EU has always been very hard on tech companies, and now they're practically succumbing exactly to the things that they were trying their hardest to restrict.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Like, they have all these laws and regulations, but that's kind of why they're behind. Because America has just been running rampant with this shit, not giving a fuck about laws, and it's allowed for this mega boom expansion of AI and cloud computing, and you know, is it good? Is it bad? You know, but is it fast? It's certainly fast, and it's certainly the reason why the European Union is behind, is because they can't make up their mind between 27 countries or so what the laws are going to be, right? And they only meet like once a quarter or once a year on these big decisions, and if they can't make an agreement, then it takes another year to get stuff done.
Yeah, you know, I don't get it. If we look at it like purely, obviously companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they have other ventures to fund their AI venture. But if you look at OpenAI, right, with ChatGPT, I don't know if you've looked into it, bro, but they're burning cash. They're burning cash so much so that there have actually been a lot of companies that have pulled out their funding from OpenAI. And I like, if you just use OpenAI as an example of, yo, here's this massive cash cow, but we don't know how to. The value of the company is extremely high, is what I'm saying, but they are not sure how to turn their revenue into profit. And so, and my question, I mean, bro, look at the expense of building these AI gigafactories, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. It comes at wrecking the local community. Not only that, these jobs are temporary. You're not creating long-term, sustainable economic growth in that area. You're only creating around 50 to 100 jobs once it's being done built. And those are like permanent jobs. We're not talking about temporary jobs, not for contractors, not for the construction workers. So overall, AI, I think it has its uses, but at what cost will it come to us?
And that's a topic for another day. Unfortunately, that's like that could be a whole podcast by itself, way outside of the scope of this, but definitely stuff to think about in relation to everything that's going on.
Yeah. Let us know if y'all want that to be a topic for next week or maybe on down the road. We will certainly consider that.
I'm sure it'll keep coming up. No
Yeah.
All right, which brings us to our closing, finally. What should you be on the lookout for? June 24th is the 4th European Union Sovereign Cloud Day. It's happening in Brussels, Belgium. They'll be talking about the new proposal, and they'll be talking specifically about data sovereignty, right? So looking forward to seeing those key players there. Hannah Birkinen especially. Hannah Birkinen. Did I mess that up? Anyway, looking forward to some good conversations, some more documents coming out in the near future. But now you guys are all caught up on what's going on. You guys are up to date. You guys can talk about it.
Yeah, just to add on to that really quick, guys.
Go ahead.
You have okay. You guys, just make sure to keep out for the date of July 27th. That is only coming up in a few weeks here. The EU Stop Killing Games initiative. The European Commission must respond by that date. It has already passed all of its signatures across 24 member states. So keep an eye out for that. We'll let you guys know as that story progresses. Was there anything else you like to add, Don?
A lot of stuff going on in the European Union, Don.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean,
just all
dude,
these stories relating to each other.
with tech especially. Awesome.
Sources, and that's the end of my case. Let us know what you think in the comments. You know, read the stuff. You know, read the papers. There's some really good stuff in there. All right, how do I? There we go.
Thank you guys for tuning in so much. This was possibly one of the better ways it could have went. We did not put much preparation into this whatsoever. If you guys like this format, please let us know. If you guys have any opinions at all, let us know down below.
This has been Don.
And Don.
All right. Cyber out, bro.
There we go. All right, and we are clear.
Cool. All right, let me call it.